My husband stole my promotion announcement email and claimed it was his work. When my team applauded him, he whispered, "You're just the pretty face, I'm the brain." I smiled through tears. 4 days later, my CEO walked into my office with a question that left him speechless. I'm Michigan 39. Urban planner. Born and raised in a small town outside Milwaukee, but I've lived in Chicago for the last 14 years. My job isn't glamorous, but it's important. City infrastructure, transit design, community planning, that's the work I do at Vireo, one of the top urban planning firms in the Midwest. I never used to be someone who sought recognition. I loved being part of something bigger. But after working in a male-dominated field for so long, fighting to be heard, to be taken seriously, recognition started to matter. Especially when it was earned. I met Nolan when I was 27, just after I got promoted to junior lead on a green space project near Hyde Park. He was sharp, dressed well, always had a book under his arm, and talked about macroeconomics like he was teaching a TED Talk. He worked in private finance, and I found his confidence magnetic. We got married 3 years later in a small ceremony at Garfield Park Conservatory. It felt fitting, me in the world of green infrastructure, him appreciating the aesthetics, as he put it. Back then, he supported my career. Or so I thought. The first red flags didn't show up until I started outpacing his career. He floated between firms, consulting here and there, while I was climbing steadily. I noticed the compliments about my work slowly faded. Replaced by sarcasm. Wow, another meeting? You guys really talk a lot, don't you? Or, you lead a whole team? What do they even do if you're doing all the thinking? I'd laugh it off. But deep down, it chipped away at me. Then came the South Shore project. It was the biggest proposal of my career, redesigning the entire South Shore transit corridor to better serve low-income communities, connect underfunded neighborhoods, and prepare the city for sustainable growth. It was a bold pitch. Months of work. Long nights, skipped dinners, missed birthdays. My team and I poured everything into it. And it paid off. I remember the exact night I found out we secured the city's approval to move forward. I came home late, the sky pitch black and the city lights glowing like they were celebrating with me. I walked in, laptop still humming, and said, "We got it." Nolan was on the couch, scrolling. "That's cool." That was it. No hug. No, "I'm proud of you." Just "that's cool." But I didn't have time to dwell. I needed to prepare a summary for our internal newsletter, something our CEO would use to announce the project lead, me, to the entire company. I kept it short. Professional. Michigan Hart, Senior Project Lead, will be spearheading the South Shore revitalization. Her leadership and innovative design approach were pivotal in securing the bid. I showed it to Nolan before bed. I wasn't looking for approval, I was just proud. He didn't say much. Just glanced at it and mumbled, "Nice." I hit send. Closed my laptop. Went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 37 unread messages. "Congratulations, Nolan. Amazing leadership. Didn't know you were consulting on South Shore. Michigan is lucky to have a strategist like you behind the scenes." My stomach dropped. I opened the internal newsletter. There it was. Nolan Hart, strategic consultant, will be leading the South Shore revitalization. I stared at it, unable to process what I was seeing. My name was gone. The entire blurb was rewritten. And somehow, Nolan, who had never worked a single hour on this project, was being credited. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. A mix-up. I called HR. Asked what had happened. "Oh, Nolan submitted an updated version. He said you'd discussed it and he was the lead on strategic oversight." I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. When I confronted him that evening, he barely blinked. "Babe, I just cleaned it up." "I mean, I helped you with the framing, didn't I?" He hadn't. Not one word. "You didn't even work on it," I whispered. He smirked. You're the pretty face, Michigan. I'm the brain. I should have screamed. I should have thrown something. But I didn't. I smiled. Numb and humiliated. Because I knew if I didn't keep my head straight, I'd lose everything. The next day at work, my team congratulated us. Applauded him. My junior coordinator, Mira, handed him a thank you card. I took a deep breath, nodded politely, and went straight to my office. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed at the office and printed every version of the proposal. Every time-stamped document. Every login record. I documented everything: slides, Excel sheets, internal chats. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to prove. 4 days later, Gordon, our CEO, knocked on my office door. He never just dropped by. He sat down, laid a printed email on my desk, and asked quietly, Michigan, can you walk me through this? I looked down. It was from Nolan. Sent to Gordon weeks before the final announcement. He pitched himself as a behind-the-scenes consultant who helped shape the strategic vision of the South Shore project, and even suggested a potential revenue model that he had claimed to draft. I nearly laughed. That model? I'd stayed up for 26 straight hours refining it. He hadn't even seen it until after submission. I can walk you through everything, I said calmly. Every file, every iteration, every comment thread. It's all traceable. Gordon just nodded. I thought so. He stood up. Thank you. And left. I thought that was the end of it. But that was just the beginning. That night, Nolan came home like nothing had happened. He brought home Thai takeout and placed it on the counter like it was any other Thursday. Figured you'd be too tired to cook, he said casually, popping open a carton of green curry. How was work? I stared at him from across the kitchen. His back was turned. His shoulders relaxed. He was humming. I realized then that he truly believed he'd gotten away with it. I didn't answer him. I didn't eat. I spent most of that evening sitting in the bathroom, door locked, staring at the message Gordon had forwarded me, Nolan's pitch to my company. My company. He had not only claimed credit for the project but asked for a consulting stipend. He called my work a byproduct of collaborative conversations at home. Collaborative. Conversations. What conversations? We hadn't had a real conversation in months. We barely spoke. Most nights he'd complain about the noise of my typing or make passive-aggressive jokes about how I lived on Zoom. But here he was, taking my success, reshaping it into something he could exploit. Like it was his right. The next morning, I arrived at work before anyone else. I didn't go to my desk. I went straight to legal. I explained the situation calmly, handed over the documentation, the proposal trail, and even the handwritten notes from my journal that predated any supposed contributions from Nolan. They said they'd escalate it internally. I said I'd be happy to cooperate with any review. By noon, an internal memo had gone out. It was short. Correction: the South Shore Revitalization Project will be led by Michigan Hart, Director of Planning. Previous versions of the announcement contained inaccurate details. We regret the error. Director of Planning. That was new. It hadn't been discussed. I hadn't applied. I blinked at the screen, unsure if I was hallucinating. Seconds later, I got a direct message from Gordon. Come by my office. I walked in, nervous. I wasn't sure what to expect. Gordon wasn't the warmest person, but he was sharp. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. He stood when I entered, motioned for me to sit. You've handled this with impressive restraint, he said, nodding slightly. I nodded back. I just wanted it corrected. He gave a small smile. We did more than correct it. The way you carried that proposal, through every revision, every negotiation, it's clear you're not just leading projects. You're shaping the way we work. That was how I became the youngest woman in the company's history to hold that title. But I didn't smile. Not yet. Because I knew what would come next. I walked back to my office, sat down, and waited. Waited for Nolan to call. To text. To ask what the heck just happened. Instead, he came to the office. He showed up. He buzzed in at the front desk, asking for me by name. Reception called up, confused. I told them to send him up. He walked in like he owned the place. Wearing a tailored jacket and the smug expression of a man who didn't yet know he'd been outplayed. "You could have told me," he said, leaning on my office door frame. "About the memo. About the title change." I kept typing. "I didn't think it involved you." He laughed, low and condescending. "Come on, Cal. You think they made that correction without me saying it was okay?" I gave them the green light. I was being generous. I stopped typing. I turned to him and said, slowly, "They corrected it because you lied. You impersonated a strategic consultant, submitted false information, and attempted to profit off a project you had nothing to do with. This isn't a game, Nolan. This is my career." He raised his eyebrows like I was being dramatic. "You're acting like I hacked your computer. I just edited an email. You submitted an invoice to legal for $12,000. He didn't respond. Just blinked. Then, "That was, for my time. I did help you." I stood up. "You're not welcome here, Nolan. If you come back, I'll have security escort you out. And if you pursue anything with legal, know that I have a full audit trail that shows you were never involved. Not once. I've already shared it with our attorney." He left. No shouting. No fight. Just silence. That night at home, he was gone. His things still there, but no trace of him. I didn't ask where he went. I slept alone for the first time in years. And I felt peace for the first time in even longer. But it wasn't over. The fallout was still coming. He didn't go quietly. He never does. He didn't come home the next night. Or the night after that. And for a while, I let myself believe that maybe he was embarrassed. Maybe he'd finally realized the gravity of what he'd done, tried to walk away, give me space, lick his wounds somewhere quiet. But I should have known better. Nolan didn't disappear when he was ashamed. He disappeared when he was plotting. It was Mira, my junior coordinator, who brought the next piece of the mess to my attention. Michigan. I don't know if this means anything, but I thought you'd want to see it. She slid her phone across my desk. It was a LinkedIn post. Nolan's. Proud to have played a strategic role in securing the South Shore revitalization contract, pioneering ideas take collaboration, vision, and leadership. Grateful for the behind-the-scenes impact I was able to make. He even tagged Vireo. My company. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding in my ears. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments congratulating him, asking if he was open for consulting work, if he was branching into urban development full-time. He had used my name to build a portfolio. I spent 2 hours with the PR team after that. We drafted a formal statement clarifying that no outside consultants were engaged on the South Shore project. We didn't name him. We didn't need to. Nolan took the post down within an hour of our statement going up. But the damage had already started to spread. 3 nights later, I came home to find him sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes. He looked up, half expecting me to be surprised. "I'm packing," he said. "Since you're clearly building your empire alone." I didn't respond. Just walked past him into the kitchen. My head was still swimming from a long day of meetings. I had no more energy for his performance. He followed me in. "Do you really think they promoted you because of that damn proposal?" I turned slowly. "Excuse me?" He scoffed. "You're a diversity hire with good timing. You think they'd give you that title if you didn't check every HR box?" Female, no kids, urban planner, it's a branding move. I didn't say a word. I watched him try to claw back power with cruelty. It didn't even sting anymore. It just felt pathetic. I don't care what you think, I said quietly. That hit him harder than anything else I could have said. He stared at me like I was a stranger. I walked upstairs. Closed the door. Locked it. In the morning, he was gone again. But 2 days later, I received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year, Elena, an old friend of mine from grad school. We'd drifted apart. She'd moved to Seattle, started a family, lost touch. Her message was short: "Hey Michigan, I know this might sound random, but did Nolan ever tell you he helped me build my startup pitch back in 2015? My stomach dropped. He had mentioned her. Briefly. Years ago. Said she'd gotten in over her head and he'd saved her from crashing and burning. I replied, he said he helped you refine your business plan. She wrote back almost immediately. He stole it. He took my presentation deck, sent it to a friend who pitched it to another incubator. I found out too late. I never had proof. I didn't even know how to confront him. I've always felt stupid about it. I sat there, stunned. She wasn't the first. I called Birgit, my lawyer. Told her everything. And Birgit, in her calm, surgical way, said, then we need to start documenting a pattern. The intellectual property issue is just the tip of the iceberg. If he's done this before, we can expose it. The divorce papers had already been drawn. But now we had reason to escalate. Not just for separation, but for misconduct and potential damages. I filed a motion the following week. That same day, Nolan sent me a series of texts. You really want to do this in public? I thought we were past this childish revenge thing. You've made your point. Let's keep this quiet and civil. I didn't answer. He showed up at my office again. This time, he didn't even make it to the elevators. Security turned him away. Later that evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was him. You're not who I thought you were, Michigan. You act like some wounded hero, but you're vindictive. You always needed someone to keep you grounded. Without me, you're going to burn out. Watch. I deleted the message. But part of me couldn't help but feel it. Because I was tired. Not from the fight, but from the weight of proving. Proving I'd earned my place. Proving I was the mind behind the projects. Proving I didn't need him to succeed. That I never had. That exhaustion stayed with me in quiet moments. But it didn't stop me. Because something had shifted. I wasn't just defending my work anymore. I was defending every time someone like Nolan had walked into a boardroom and assumed a woman was there to smile and nod. I started reaching out, to former coworkers, to women in planning forums, to grad students. I talked about the project. About what it meant. About owning your ideas. And the more I spoke, the more stories came forward. Women who'd been overshadowed, erased, talked over. Sometimes by colleagues. Sometimes by mentors. Sometimes by partners. Nolan was just one face in a crowd of men who thought helping a woman meant owning her. But I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. The public unveiling of the South Shore plan was coming soon. Press, city officials, even the mayor's office would be there. It would be the most visible moment of my career. And Nolan? He wasn't finished. Not yet. The morning of the South Shore unveiling arrived with a chill in the air, the kind of crisp, electric cold that makes the city skyline feel alive. Chicago's lake wind whipped at my coat as I stepped out of the car, heels crunching over the salted sidewalk. I held my folder close, press notes tucked neatly inside, though I'd long since memorized every word. It was being held in a large open-air tent at the revitalized 79th Street Metro Station, the project's flagship location. Camera crews milled about, city officials took their seats, and reporters held mics to their chests like they were holding their breath. Everyone was waiting. This wasn't just a launch. It was a message. My firm's logo was emblazoned behind the podium, flanked by renderings of the future: wider sidewalks, tree-lined corridors, electric bus lanes, safe bike lanes, community centers. And in front of it all, I stood alone, waiting for my cue. Nolan, of course, showed up. I saw him long before he realized I had. He wore a navy coat and those two shiny leather gloves he only brought out when he wanted to look official. He didn't go near the press tent. He stayed toward the back, on the fringe, close enough to be seen, but far enough to pretend he wasn't there for me. Typical Nolan move. I took a deep breath. Then Gordon, my CEO, stepped up and gave a short opening statement, thanking city partners, community groups, and our incredible team. Now, he said, turning to me, no one is more deserving of leading this transformation than Michigan Hart, Director of Urban Development and the woman whose vision brought this to life. I stepped forward to applause, some polite, some genuine. But I was calm. Collected. I spoke from the heart, about accessibility, sustainability, safety, equity. I mentioned the single mother who would now have a lit, heated bus shelter on her block. The high schooler who wouldn't need to take 2 transfers just to get to class. The seniors who would have benches to rest on during walks. And then, I paused. Just for a moment. In every project, I said, my voice steady, there's always someone who thinks your ideas are too bold. Too risky. Too ambitious. And sometimes, the loudest doubters aren't outside the room, they're beside you. But here's the truth, you don't need someone else to validate your vision. You just need to stand in it. The crowd went quiet. I let the silence settle. Then I looked directly toward the back of the tent, where Nolan stood, and smiled. I'm proud to say that every single piece of this project, from planning to final render, was designed by a team led entirely by women. There it was. The murmur. The subtle ripple of surprise. Cameras shifted slightly in my direction. Gordon's smile widened. I ended the speech with a simple line, this is not just about infrastructure. This is about reclaiming space, in our cities, in our teams, and in ourselves. Applause erupted. Nolan didn't clap. But he didn't leave either. He watched. And that was enough. The next week, a feature ran in the Chicago Tribune highlighting the South Shore project. My name was in the headline. The article focused on the all-women team behind the plan, and midway through, it mentioned an internal review revealing an attempt by an outside party to falsely claim intellectual contribution to the project. No names were listed. But those who needed to know, knew. Dario quietly updated their LinkedIn page with a highlight reel of the project, complete with behind-the-scenes footage of planning meetings, design sessions, and presentations. I was in all of them. Nolan, of course, was nowhere. Then came the best part. About 2 weeks after the article dropped, Nolan emailed me. Michigan, we need to talk. Please. It's important. I didn't respond. The next day, another email. I'd been trying to get a contract with a firm here in Boston, but someone from Vireo must have said something. I'm getting stonewalled. Can you just tell them we're on good terms? I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Birgit with a single line, for our records. She replied, already documented. He's ruining himself. And he was. Nolan's name was no longer worth what it once was, not in Chicago, not in Boston, not in any circle that respected integrity. He had inflated resumes and forged associations, but the industry was small, and the truth moved fast. Turns out, reputation matters when you're in the business of selling yourself. Meanwhile, mine had never been stronger. I was invited to speak at a national urban development conference in San Francisco. I gave a talk titled The Quiet Sabotage, Reclaiming Credit in a Male-Dominated Industry. It went viral among urban design professionals. And I made a promise to myself that day, I'd never again downplay my voice for someone else's ego. As for Nolan, the last I heard he was trying to reinvent himself as a freelance strategy coach. His new website boasted a client roster that no longer existed and testimonials that read suspiciously wrote them. I didn't bother to correct him publicly. Because the best revenge wasn't exposing him. It was removing him. From my space. From my story. From my work. He had tried to rewrite the narrative, and in the end, he became a footnote, a minor interruption in a much bigger plot. I didn't take him down. I just stepped out of his shadow. And once I did, he disappeared. Just like shadows do.